Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing expert Robert O'Haver, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, along with Matt Weber of Roar Internet Marketing.
Hey, Robert. Glad to be here today, and I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah. How's Smilealytics going?
Smilealytics is doing well. Yeah, we got conversion up to over double digits right now.
Nice.
So, which we've been working on that. Now we just have to get more visitors to the page, but we're excited about it. It's at smilealytics.com if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Those of you tuning in for the first time, Search Talk Live is a digital marketing podcast, and we're back every week talking with just amazing guests, giving us their insights and best practices on, you know, whatever it is. It could be anything. Search engine optimization. It could be conversion optimization. It could be social media, content marketing. I mean, we cover everything. So we try to give a little flavor for everyone. I hope you will take the time to tune into some of our past episodes. You can go to Spreaker, which is SPREAKER.com, or you can go to searchtalklive.com and catch some of the previous episodes. There's just tons of nuggets in there. I've been in the business a very long time. Matt, you've been in the business a long time, and every single show we take something away from it, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. In this particular show, I think I say this about every show, but this one's really important because you and I work with a lot of clients, right?
Yeah.
And how often is somebody just ultra focused on getting more visits to their website, getting more visits, and they completely ignore getting more out of the people that they already have?
Right.
Right? And the easiest thing for them to do is to get more productivity out of the visitors they already have, but they kill themselves trying to get more visitors, and they ignore that obvious step.
Yeah, I think that's. You hit the nail right on the head. A lot of, you got deal with what customers you're getting now, and in improving that whole process, that funnel, so to speak, to getting those better conversions with the customers you have now, or the potential customers anyway. Obviously, they're not customers if they haven't purchased, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also this is a great show for people to ask live questions.
Yeah,
so they can tweet Search Talk Live at Search Talk Live, and if you've got hashtag Search Talk Live, and if you've got a particular element in your site that you're wondering if it's affecting conversion or not, this is a great place to get that answer.
Yes, absolutely. Just type hashtag Search Talk Live and your question, and we will answer it live on the air. Or if you're on Spreaker, there's a little question box down at the bottom there. You can put a message there, and we'll answer it. So let's get on with the show. Today, our guest is a conversion optimization expert, and our guest today is Nick. I hope I don't mess this up. Nick Disabato, right?
Disabato.
I am the king of butchering names. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Everybody just calls me Nick D anyway. So.
All right. Yeah. So, Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I call myself like a research-driven A/B tester, and that's kind of a weird specific title, but effectively I have a design background, UX design background, and so I use design research, both qualitative and quantitative, to drive new A/B testing insights.
Fantastic. I have tons of questions for you. All right, so let's get started. Where do you want to start at?
Where do I want to start at?
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions that I typically get is how to come up with new A/B testing ideas. That might be a good place to start.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, why don't you explain the process first before we get started? What is conversion optimization exactly? So
A/B testing is a tool involved in conversion rate optimization. People often kind of equate the two. So essentially, optimization is the practice of trying to increase your conversion rate and find places that are leaking revenue in your business and patch them up. So like you said earlier, once you get people coming into the site, a certain number of them are actually buying the thing or taking the action that you want them to be taking. And so usually when you just launch a new fresh redesign of the site and everything is looking really nice and squeaky clean, you still aren't communicating in a way that necessarily resonates with your audience's values or desires, even if you've done a lot of forethought on what the actual site looks like. And so there are ways that you can take a look at what is going wrong and then try and fix them. And it's more like deliberate and careful way of effectively updating your site and your funnel so that it is easier for people to buy stuff. There's that, or sign up for your mailing list or whatever the goal is, or convert from trial. And it's also something that makes them basically feel more empowered about having done the thing, right? So you can, that kind of goes into marketing 101, like crafting the right pitch and solving a real genuine pain in your audience. And I go in and take a look at your site and figure out everything that might be going wrong and essentially try and fix it.
Well, for our listeners, if you're someone that has a website and they just don't know where to start, where are some of the trouble areas to look at? Are you digging straight into analytics, or where are you starting at?
So usually you're gathering a bunch of analytics for free and not doing anything with them. So I start with, that's kind of the core of my quantitative side of my research, where I'm going into GA and figuring out just basic, boring stuff to fix. A lot of that is extremely unsexy work, like fixing browsers and mobile and reducing page weight, and doing things that just are breaking broadly for a customer. I had a client recently that their average site speed was, I think, 16.8 seconds for every single page.
Whoa.
Right. And I go in and I'm like, well, here's some low-hanging fruit. There's, to say the least, right? And so I'm in there just acting like I'm a JavaScript developer. I'm not a JavaScript developer, but I'm going in there acting like I am one, right? And I'm finding, Wistia, which is their video hosting framework, they were calling the exact same JavaScript tracking snippet 11 times, and it was 1.2 megabytes. So how about call it once instead and see what happens? Oh, wait, nothing is broken. Let's launch that. How about we compress all of your photos, which you have like 30 of? Okay, so I run them through Google image compression. I got the site speed, I think, down to like 7 or 8 seconds. But the most important thing is that the conversion rate immediately step functioned up by 9.12%.
Wow. It's still kind of slow, but like you said, low-hanging fruit.
So you
I went from dismal to not great, and the conversion rate went up like a lot. And so, and I look like a wizard, right? And all I did was compress your images and fix your JavaScript. Like, it was actually fairly simple. But I'm looking at that, and nobody else was on the team. So I come in with that perspective, and that's one side of things. But another is like, maybe I'm looking at your funnel in Google Analytics, and I'm saying, oh, there's a drop-off here. Why? Turns out that the page isn't usable on Chrome or something like that. Like, that's not uncommon, where like I identify a major usability or like a huge bug for a limited range of customers on one page because people don't go through and like place example transactions on their website ever. They just have it there. And I go through with a dummy credit card and do that for you. So it's a lot of little stuff like that. Yeah. Does that answer the analytics bit?
Yeah, I think you're looking for triage issues, the big picture stuff, browser incompatibility, load time, device differences.
Mobile friendly,
the device differences. You're looking for that. Now, once you've got all that squared away and you're looking at a website, whether it's an e-commerce or it's a lead-generating website, and the client says to you, Nick, I'm getting a 2.3% conversion rate. I think I should be getting more. I'd like to get more. What next?
Yeah. So if we've actually tried to put that all together, sometimes I'll look at existing user behaviors. The other side of quantitative research that I do is like heat maps and scroll maps. And so I take a look at what people are actually doing when they get to your site. Are they ignoring certain elements? Are they beelining for certain other things? How do those actually map to business goals? And so I've written thousands of words about how to analyze a heat map. But fundamentally, it's a matter of looking at where people are going and where they're not going, and how far down the page they're going, and trying to say, okay, well, does this actually fulfill our business goals or not? Usually the answer is no. And then you try and speculate as to why. And that's what it is. It's speculation, but you're kind of drilling into the root causes of that thing. And so you're kind of asking, okay, well, why might people be doing this? Maybe the answer is, I don't know, and then you go and run a few tests on like Usertesting.com, which is like a usability testing site where it farms out all of the recruitment for you, and people vocalize their monologues as to why they're finding or not finding a given element. Maybe you have a hunch and an answer. Okay, great, test it, right? So you're starting to come up with some testable ideas at this point. You're getting out of the like just bug fixing, brainlessly easy, low-hanging fruit type territory. You're moving more into the, okay, well, here are some things that people are doing that we don't like from a business standpoint. How do we try and fix that, right? How do we try and do it in a way that's not like manipulative or skeezy or weird, because I try and operate with a code of ethics in my business, but rather people are all going for this one thing. We don't like that. What do we do? You know, and you're going into a more nuanced exploration of people's actual behavior as they're going through the site. And I tell you, that gives me new A/B testing ideas every month. Every month I run heat maps, and it does that.
I like your word speculation, because that to me is where testing begins. I mean, it's very rare that you look at Hotjar or a heat map and you go, oh, I got it. I know what the problem is. That's where the testing begins, is when you think, gee, I don't know whether it's because of this or that. And that's your test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying, okay, well, maybe it's a SaaS business, just say. And everybody, in my experience, the SaaS business is people beeline to the pricing tab. Is that good? I don't know. What do you have at the pricing tab? Is that actually convincing people? I don't know. And so you start to ask, like, you're either asking customers how they determined what kind of purchasing decision to make. And another part of it is, we'll move into the qualitative side of things. After somebody purchases or converts, I'll usually send a lifecycle email. The confirmation page will actually have this as a form field. And it'll be like, what was the last thing that held you back from purchasing? Or like, were you considering any other customers or any other businesses, any other competitors, that sort of stuff. Sometimes I'll even go so far as to like 2 or 3 days after being like, here's my Calendly link. I want to get on a Skype interview with you. We'll give you maybe a free month of the service or $50 Amazon gift card or something like that. And then I will sit on the phone and ask them questions and about like, and it's basically what's in Clayton Christensen parlance, it's called a jobs to be done interview. Yeah. You're asking basically like, what were the things you were looking for in this? What were the things that you weren't? Who else did you consider before purchasing this? What else held you back from it? Do you think you're getting the right value for the price? And I'm coming in, usually I'm an independent consultant who is independent from the team, and I keep the results of that extremely anonymized and decoupled from the like load-bearing components of the business, like the CEO or the COO or something like that. And then I'm just saying, okay, well, I talked to a few people and they said this, and maybe we should take them seriously. And that influences the wording of the pitch. It influences how quickly we go in for a sale. I often say that businesses suffer from a make out on the first date thing, where they want to like immediately close the sale within 30 seconds. And they're like, why aren't you buying? Buy now. Why aren't you? Here's a pop-up. Like, and those don't ever land, right? Because you're coming on too strong, and then people are frankly put off by it. Like, you have to assume that they're smart and have like dignity and integrity. Yeah. And a lot of it is like just doing the right humane thing around it's weird.
Yeah, that's a difficult stage in the funnel to negotiate. And I work with a lot of lead generating websites, and I think you do too, Robert. It's, when do you introduce price? Because if you do it too early, you get that feeling like you've gone into a store at the mall, and the minute you walk into the store, somebody says, "Can I help you? Can I help you?"
Yeah,
and you're like, "Whoa, hey, just looking, just
good
check
analogy,
in, But if you don't give them price information early enough, they're going to bail, and they're going to go find somebody else who has given them the price, because they're not going to make a commitment until they have some sense of what price is somewhere. You may not have to give it to them specifically, but you kind of have to give them some feel for it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's on my biggest offering that I have, where I just do the full luxury car wash for you, all of the A/B tests, all of the research. I don't list a price, but I say you should, this is a high touch service, and you should think more, less getting a freelancer for $5 on Upwork and more brand new Honda Civic.
Yeah, and you're kind of along the way building value, right?
Right. And you're controlling the frame around it, right? Like when you think brand new Honda Civic, it could be, the cheapest Honda Civic that they offer, or you could add everything and gild it, right? Like, and then it costs a lot more. So you're giving somebody a range and a sense of that range.
Yeah, and I would say for the folks listening to the show who don't have an optimization strategy yet worked out, one step that may be helpful is to work out the math of the benefits of the optimization strategy. So you know your conversion rate, and if you're following those numbers all the way down, and you know your ROI, if you've got to sell it up, then say, look what we can achieve if we get a 15% lift in conversion rate. This is what the dollars look like at the end. And I think when I've discussed testing in terms of dollars instead of, ethereally, hey, we're going to do testing because we want to make things better, I get more traction if I talk about it in dollars.
Right.
That is exactly right. And honestly, it's a very good way to prove your value as an optimizer as well. So if you want to do my job for a living, the number one thing is you should be making more money than you cost or you can fire yourself. And as a designer, it feels really good to be very close to the money, because that's usually most people talk to you about well, how do you prove the value of design? And then I just point to your analytics and I'm like, here it is.
Yeah.
I have a very clear answer for that, and I've justified it with 5 years of experience. And so, if you're a business owner and you're thinking about it in that way, that's great, because then I don't have to do that work for you when you come in the door. But a lot of the time, I'm having that exact conversation that you just said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, what's the strangest element you've discovered in your career that has influenced conversion?
As far as design elements, UX elements, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, God. One thing that I found, can I answer one that I thought would influence conversion and didn't, and it was similarly surprising?
Yeah.
Okay, so I once ran a test for a very large everyday carry site that makes $3 million in sales a year, something like that, off one major product line. I ran a test that removed all but one product from that product line and launched it, and it made absolutely no difference in sales or conversion rate. We rolled it out. It reduced, I think, 40% of their manufacturing and shipping costs.
Wow.
So it was not even a conversion rate increase. It was a costs decrease, but it's still valuable to the business. Yeah, and I was shocked. I imagined it would be dismal. They're like, let's try it. I'm like, okay.
So what was the win?
The win was that they saved several $100,000 in manufacturing expenses a year.
Oh no! I mean, I thought you went another route with it and increased sales too.
No. It made no difference. That was the thing.
I got you.
But it was okay that it made no difference because it wasn't a failure, right? And people didn't notice either way.
But I think you're onto an important topic. So if I understand you, you gave the end user fewer choices, and the conversion rate stayed the same.
Yep.
But it lowered the cost of the company.
But it lowered the cost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it helped them out substantially in the business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, there's a lot of good literature out there about how the number of choices actually negatively impacts persuasion and negatively impacts conversion. People have so many options that they're getting paralyzed, right? There's just too much information to take in.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're right there.
So what was the strangest thing that you found that did influence conversion?
I ran a button color test. So this is great because everybody says don't run the button color test, and I agree, right? It's the dumbest. You read about this in some case study somewhere that said we changed the button from green to red and made $8 million. Isn't that amazing? And those case studies are the single biggest misinformer about my job that can possibly ever exist. But I ran a button color test, and it was actually for the Wirecutter. I changed their purchase buttons. If you don't know what the Wirecutter is, they're basically consumer reports for millennials. They do 400 hours of research on a given topic, like hard drives or camping equipment or luggage. And they say, this is the best one, buy it. And then they make all their money off of affiliate fees on Amazon and other retail outlets. I changed them all to the color that the store is. So instead of them all being one color, it was Amazon orange, Walmart blue, Apple gray, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was... It fared extremely well for them. It was our most successful test in 2 years of work together.
Wow, that's really great.
It was really great. And I was thinking the whole time, they're like, they want to do a button color test. Oh, heck no. This is...
Yeah, but that's a low-hanging fruit, isn't it? I mean, that's...
yeah.
a couple of minutes in CSS.
Yeah, and it was took me like 10 minutes to roll out. It was really easy. And then we had to do it again because we didn't believe that the results were that good. We were like, let's try that again because maybe it was like a weekend or it overlapped Good Friday and maybe people are buying stuff then. We don't know. Nope. It was just a bonkers good test. So.
That's amazing. Now, let me ask, Nick, would you say I'm wrong if when it comes to user experience and conversion optimization, it is always a test? I mean, like, compete against each other on two different variations, and then once you get a winner there, do it again and do it again until you hit a flat line, wouldn't you say? Yeah,
I think that you, A/B testing is a continual process, right?
Sure.
You should always have something running. And so whenever I'm preparing whenever I've launched an A/B test, I'm always preparing the next test. So there's that. Mm-hmm. But I think to your last point there, you do get a little bit of diminishing returns, right?
Right.
A page does eventually become optimized enough that you have to work harder and harder to improve it. And so there are a handful of ways that you can try and account for that. One of them is to try increasingly ambitious changes. But sometimes that just means you're doing insane stuff that shouldn't be happening anyway. By ambitious, I mean like significant reworks of your pricing layout or of the or of your checkout flow or something like that. And so that involves more and more development effort.
Sure.
The plus side is that I've already boosted your conversion rates. So you probably have enough belief in the whole process that you're willing to throw resources at it. The minus side is that you're throwing more resources at it for a more unclear reward, right? So there are two things that happen. One of them is either we reach diminishing returns or you decide to redesign wholesale, and that comes from internally, and then I run it against the original site or whatever have you.
Right.
And so it moves into a more like art of war scenario, more art than war, than where you're vetting internally the reasons for the redesign. You've come up with a good business case for it, and then you kind of try and shepherd that through and act as the product director on that. There have been a lot of engagements I've worked on where a year and a half in, they're like, our site looks horrible, doesn't it? I'm like, yes. They're like, we should redesign it. Yes. And then I become the product director of the redesign because there's no other leadership around it. And then I test the redesign, and then I optimize the redesign. That is actually quite a lot of fun. But I found that it's usually like an 18-month cycle with most of the people I work with. Others might have their own different sense of that, but they're all unique people, so it differs.
Let's tackle some low-hanging fruit, and that's form design.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about, number one, what are some key things that you think immediately jump out to you when you look at somebody's form that should be tested? And then, two, if you can follow that up with, look, I'll give you Nick's gospel on form design. I've already tested this, so save your time. I know this doesn't work, but I still see it everywhere.
Yeah, so I think broadly, no one loves filling out forms, right? So, but you have to have somebody fill out forms in order to sign up as a customer, give you money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll answer the second thing first. The two biggest pieces of low-hanging fruit that I provide to my clients are reduce the number of form fields between beginning and conversion as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And it is always worth the development effort even when you are cutting out one field. So things like password confirmation, things like asking for your first name before email and not putting that as part of the onboarding sequence. Asking for both billing and shipping addresses by default and not making it a little checkbox that's ticked by default. Having you check a box for terms and conditions approval, that sort of stuff. And then the second thing is mobile. So there's a resource. If you go to Baymard, BAYMARD.com, they have what's called a touch keyboard cheat sheet. And so if you are entering a credit card number, you should make it as brainlessly easy as humanly possible. Support Apple Pay and Android Pay if you possibly can. If not, you can do a lot of things around keyboards. You should make it so that it switches to the numeric keypad for things like expiration date and CVV. You should have it so it highlights the correct credit card number, that sort of stuff.
Or autofill.
Autofill is another huge one. Autocorrect, turn it off for the name and address. That sort of stuff is like 101 stuff you should be doing before you ever run an A/B test. And everybody I work with has some sort of major flaw around it.
That's a great tips right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
One or both of those things. Do those today. So when we get into that point, then if let's say I'm working with an e-commerce store, I'll offer some tips on that front and answer your former question now. One of them is accessories and product upsells at cart and at checkout. I do this often where there's usually like a flagship product and then a bunch of other like little like upsell accessories that you can do. If you can capture that before somebody places the order or within an hour, say like, one thing I love doing is after on the thank you page, say, click this button sometime within the next hour and we'll add this thing to your order for free shipping because they're already paid for shipping. And there are Shopify plugins that do that for you and Magento and stuff like that. But that's a good way to capture upsells on the thank you page and on the cart page. You can also say, go even specific, and I love saying 48% of customers added this to their order, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's counterintuitive, and sometimes it's self-fulfilling because that 49% was because you put the call there in the first place, and you boosted that number. But that's great, you know. So there are ways to you're basically acting like you're the like chewing gum aisle, right, in the checkout of the grocery store, right, like the little impulse purchase area. Doing what you can to catalyze that is super, super valuable. Adding social proof on things that people might be terribly skeptical about and wording that so that it fulfills the needs of the customers. This is where surveying and interviews come into play in a hugely, hugely valuable way. I will, especially for like luxury goods and stuff like that, where people are viewing things as like investment pieces, have people talk about how much they never regretted buying the thing. And like, yes, it's expensive, but it's amazing. Stuff like that.
Where do you land on spaces for form fields? What's your reaction when you see a design where they've got a space for 75 characters for a phone number?
Yeah, you should make the form field the correct width of the data type. And even if you end up with extra white space, then it kind of conveys what the feedback is, like zip versus postal or something like that. Like make it a little bit wider for the postal. But yeah, I kind of I don't think everything should be 100% width or the same width. I think that's people who loved reading about grid systems in college make those kind of forms.
I still see that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick, let me ask you, I mean, wouldn't you say for the listeners, just for their advice, is to make sure that if they're in a multiple step process as far as forms on an e-commerce site, you know, where they go from the address to the credit card to the whatever, you know, there's like 3 steps or whatever, to make sure that that email address is in that first, you know, that contact information is there on the first page, because if they happen to abandon the cart after that, you have their email address. You can go and market those people, you know, for cart abandonment.
Right.
That was a successful test that I ran for a previous client, actually. I ran a test where there was 2 pages. They even had this all set up for me. It was a SaaS business. There was login and password, and there was email. And then the next page was, okay, now you're about to buy the trial. And I think it was like a 63% drop off between the first and the second, because then you're sprung with a credit card field.
Exactly.
And conversion rates crater when you get the credit card field, but they had to put it there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, can we take a look at the emails? Are you gathering the emails that we're doing anything like? And they're like, oh yeah, we're gathering the emails. I'm like, okay, great. What do we do with them? Tumbleweed bounces across the conference table. Like crickets.
What do we do with them?
So how about we test a lifecycle email campaign on them because we have nothing to lose?
Right.
What do you do for a living? Oh, we're an email provider.
Hope you haven't had that. Hope that's not a real story.
That's a real story.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
Do you test form field order?
Yeah, sometimes, but I find more that grouping matters. And I find more that like chunking it so it's sensible, putting it all on one page versus different pages, that matters a little bit more than order. Other than email, like you mentioned, but yeah.
Yeah.
Credit card at the end, but yeah.
Because, I mean, you either hit them with a retargeting email with their product, their shopping cart information, or what they purchased or were going to purchase, or you retarget them. Either way, you're getting back in their face again, you know?
Yeah, I think the one you have to be careful with is phone number. People are getting really leery about giving up their phone number.
Yeah.
So that's got to be, to me, at the end, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I set up maybe at the end of the billing address or something like that.
Right.
I think payment is always going to be the thing. It is the thing that you give the money about, you know, like, and I think that's, my suspicion is it's been a best practice on e-commerce for like my entire adult life. So maybe don't muck with it. Like that's my hunch on it.
Yeah. And I've also seen where they take a little snippet of their privacy policy, just the important part where they're like, we're not going to call you or we're not going to share your information type of thing.
Yeah, no, we've tested that and that does seem to work. And I think, you know, when you future trend this conversation, as every day we turn on the TV or read the newspaper or get on a blog and we find out that somebody else has been hacked and somebody else's information, I think people become less willing and more careful about giving up information on the web no matter what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, yeah, it's time for a break. We got to take a break real quick.
We'll be right back.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. HomeValue.com.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. Check out robertpalmercompanies.com for more information.
Those of you just tuning in, we are talking with Nick. How do you say your last name again?
Disabato.
Okay, there we go. We're talking conversion optimization and UX design to increase conversion in your website. Really good information you've given us so far. Where did we leave off at?
Sorry. Well, we've talked about a couple of low-hanging fruit. Talked about form design. We've talked about some things that Nick has found previously. I think it's time to get a little mathematical. And Nick, we got to start talking about when is something a trend? We've got folks in the audience who are doing some testing right now, but what they don't know is when is the answer correct? At what point is the sample size something they can rely on?
Got it. So sample size is easy. Basically, you're calculating sample size based on the conversion rate that you previously had and what's called the minimum detectable effect for the lift in conversion that you want to be getting. So let's say it's purchases because you're a business and you have purchases. And your conversion rate is, let's say, 3%, pretty industry standard average. If you want the more traffic that you have, the smaller detectable effect that you can vet. So if it happens to be like 3.2%, your conversion rate goes up to. That means you probably have a lot of traffic. The less traffic you have, the bigger win you're going to be able to detect. And that's just kind of a rule of statistics. This is the way that math works. It's not my fault. It's not anybody's fault. But if you want to do the exact same calculations that I do in my job every day, I use a colleague's calculator at evanmiller.org. And he has a minimum sample size calculator that you can take a look at, and it shows how many hits per variation that you can do. Now, I'll be abundantly clear here. You want the test to run for at least 1 week and probably at most 1 month in order to account for like day-to-day fluctuations in the business. So you're not just launching it over a weekend because weekend behavior is always different from weekday behavior. But also you don't want to run it for so long that you're starting to get antsy about changing stuff procedurally. you might not be getting a clear ROI from testing at that point, or your demographics might be shifting too much, or it might be overlapping too much of like a holiday period or a seasonal period or something like that. So I typically say somewhere between 1 week and 1 month. If your sample size that you're getting back from that Evan Miller calculator says, well, you need to be running the test for 3 months to get anything, then you should probably be focusing on more like one-off optimizations, like a lot of the things that I was saying before around mobile and site and page weight and that sort of stuff. That's stuff you can do without ever running an A/B test. But you need to have a minimum amount of traffic and a minimum amount of revenue-generating transactions in order for it to really be worth it for your business.
Yeah, Nick, what would your advice be? I mean, obviously a person can't wait long if they don't have a lot of traffic going to their site. Would you recommend them maybe running a PPC campaign or something like that to drive more traffic than they normally get, or just wait a longer period of time, or what would your advice be?
PPC is dangerous if you don't have prior proof of it working well enough for you, and you don't have prior proof of people coming in and actually converting at a higher rate. Because what usually ends up happening with PPC is you throw a lot of money at it and juice the traffic, but you're either doing like lower quality keywords, you're getting people who aren't really wallet out and don't know anything about your business yet. Now, there are two ways around that. You can either get people to like sign up for a free course or a mailing list or something like that, and then you're doing a little bit more work to prepare them to become consumers of your products because they don't have the education necessary to trust you yet or understand the value that it is you're providing. So that's something that maybe you play up as if PPC, give them this page and shunt them over to a landing page, and it tells them, okay, well, you can buy this thing, or you can get our free course or something like that. Or you can just get this free mailing list where we just give you tips and soft sell you all the time. That's one thing that I do very often with people is like, okay, well, you can do that recommendation. The second thing is a little bit more durable, like authority building is like just working and doubling down on like education and outreach. And it's very much like a content marketing playbook, but it's also like try and get on other people's podcasts, or try and do guest blog posts for other people, and reach out in that way, and say, okay, well, now you have more links coming into the site, so you're more likely to get more organic traffic in. And that is probably going to boost your conversion rate a little bit, or at least it's going to boost your conversion volume a little bit. And it might give you a little bit more to work with from an A/B testing point of view. And it's more likely to be durable across a long period of time. Like you stop paying PPC, like you're done, right? Like it goes away. But outreach lasts for way longer. It has longer delta. Stuff stays online for longer.
So there are a couple tools out there that can help people with the math of the correct sample size. You mentioned one. And, of course, when you do it through Google Analytics, they have their own sample size calculator and give you the reliability indicator. What are some other tools that you've found success with that people can use to assist in their A/B testing?
Same guy, Evan Miller. I use his chi-squared calculator to calculate statistical significance of tests. The reason I do that is because VWO and Optimizely, and actually Google Optimize, they kind of have they use what are called Bayesian models of statistical prediction, which is a really long way of saying we built a black box to try and make it easier for you to call tests with less traffic. And I don't know what they do, and I do this for a living. So I run everything through boring old statistics like I'm a crazy neckbeard, and it works out. I'm able to call tests with way, way more confidence. And then I work with clients that operate at a higher scale as a result of that. So that's one tool that I use. Beyond that, for heat maps, I use a site called Hotjar. It's a weird name, but they do really good at getting you heat maps and scroll maps, that sort of thing. I use a lot of image optimizers. I use it's called Wetzley. It's a Google-generated JPEG compressor that uses machine learning to make the most optically optimal JPEG. I use ImageOptim for pings in the event that I have to use pings because of translucency. But beyond that, it's really me like managing a Trello board that has a bunch of A/B testing ideas. If you aren't on Trello as a project management tool, I strongly recommend it. And then writing a bunch of JavaScript to actually create the tests and do prototypes. I use a million general purpose tools in my job every single day.
What is the one tool you'd actually use to divert the traffic from A to B? Or you know what I mean?
I use Visual Website Optimizer, which is at VWO.com. And as mentioned, there's also Google Optimize and Optimizely. Google Optimize is like 2 weeks old, and so it's very fresh. And I have heard whisperings from other testers that it's buggy right now. That's going to change. They're going to fix everything.
Yeah, they did have it once before. They took it away, and then they brought it back.
It was called Google Website Experiments, and you had to generate the pages yourself. This is more of a WYSIWYG editor. And also you can 403 redirect it, or 301 or whatever the number is. Redirect it over. I think 403 is bad.
Yeah.
So.
Do you segment your A/B test by device because you're finding the results vary so much from mobile to desktop?
All the time. I mean, I do a lot of tests where I am targeting mobile only and making changes to mobile only, because I mean there's one store I'm working on right now where I think 83% of their traffic is mobile, right? And so yeah, it makes a lot of sense that I should be reducing page weight and making things as brainlessly easy as humanly possible for mobile, because they're giving almost all of the money, and also their conversion rate is lower. So that strikes me as like they're not able to buy and it's our fault.
That makes sense. I mean, that's any website. But see, here's the thing. And you kind of, when it comes to conversion optimization, you're also, some of the things you're doing are also SEO. I mean, it's optimizing a website. But I guess what I'm saying here is, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, a lot of those mesh together so that, when you're increasing page speed, that is a huge ranking factor.
Yes.
So you're not only are you going to improve that conversion rate, but you're going to increase the rank of that page simply by doing those things that should have, our user experience.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I think like I'm going to be terribly simplistic about this because I'm not an SEO guy, and all of the SEO specialists out there are going to be like sharpening their scimitars about this. But like, a lot of SEO for me, from my perspective, is like semantic HTML, doing content marketing outreach, and not screwing up your mobile experience. And you should be doing those things anyway.
Right. Yeah.
They're best practices of the industry. And so I come in and say, okay, well, you don't have your H1 in the right place. That's like what it is for me, like people aren't able to read your site with a screen reader, and you might be like supporting accessibility and making that a huge initiative. And some people just need to walk the walk on it. I'm going to get really rambly about this, but yeah, I think it's definitely a situation where I'm kind of putting in a lot of the like classical SEO playbook, and it just got renamed as the CRO playbook, and we're all operating from the same. And it's also the Google Analytics playbook, and we're all operating from the same playbook because we're all serving the same master, which is either Google or the customer, depending on who your perspective is.
Yeah. Hey, in one of your teardowns that you have on the web that people can enjoy, you write a little bit about humanization, and humanization is becoming a little bit of a conversion optimization technique or theory. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's basically recognizing, I mean, there's kind of two things. One of them is not writing to the demographic profile that you're trying to target. And so some of that is surveying, some of that is doing a little bit more like interviewing, that sort of stuff. And then the other side of it is not writing in such a like horrendously wooden way where you feel a need to appease everybody. When you have a strongly held belief and opinion, and that kind of specificity, it is extremely counterintuitive, because the fight or flight part of your brain that you evolved to have views that as alienating customers and driving away business, right? Facebook might have to worry about that as a business because their goal is to sign up Earth, right? Your goal is not to sign up Earth. It is to sign up a specific kind of customer and have a sense of what that customer is. Right. So this dovetails very strongly with the kind of qualitative research that you should be doing. And so as a result, it's a matter of having confidence. And yes, you're going to drive people away, right? A good example I like to cite about this is a business called Dollar Shave Club, which y'all might know. But basically, if you search Dollar Shave Club introductory video, something like that on YouTube, oh my gosh, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely have to see it. It is basically the owner of the Dollar Shave Club doing this extremely madcap, devil-may-care video where he's like, we sell razor blades. They're super cheap. You're going to love us. And doing all of this crazy stuff throughout the video and being helped by a lot of other people. And it feels to me like he operates with a sense that he has nothing to lose, when in fact he just launched his business and has absolutely everything to lose, right? And they sold to Unilever for like $1 billion like a couple of months ago.
Wow.
So...
You did a teardown of an app, and one of the things you mentioned in that is that you noted that the app used the photographs of real people. I think it was a financial advisor app or website. And you wrote about how, that was a compelling conversion technique because you saw a real person with a real phone number and a real email address, and instead of putting in a stock image. And I think I'm finding that a little bit too, is that I think people's stock image detector is becoming more sensitive now. And authenticity and genuineness in these messages is beginning to become a conversion factor. Do you find that too, Robert?
I agree, but I think we just lost Shutterstock as a... No, I'm just kidding. As a sponsor. No, I'm kidding. No, I definitely agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, humans crave conversion... Or not conversion. They crave...
See what's on his mind.
They crave... if only, right? They crave connection. That was the word I actually meant to say.
Yeah.
And that was going to be really powerful. But they crave connection, and I think the more that we bury ourselves in devices, the more we continue to crave connection. Like, I live in the middle of Chicago. There's 2.8 million people around me right now. And I still feel like you get more and more alienated from the world the more and more technology incurs itself on your life. And this is going to get very philosophical and squishy about it, but the more you can do to and you can't fake it, to genuinely and honestly connect with the customer in a way that shows I'm a real person and I want to have a relationship with you and I'm not here to scam you and this is okay. People want that. People want that. It's not just that it pays off. It's also that it's just you being a good human. Yeah. And it's good that happens to pay off because often those work at disincentives to each other.
Yeah, well, people want to do business with people.
Right.
People are attracted to people.
And I've seen that time and time again where maybe a CEO of a company or something puts his face on a website and puts his name and everything out there. Because, I mean, that creates trust because you're giving that, credibility that, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is my company. And that kind of makes it a little more powerful, I think.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that people ought to look at testing are stock images versus genuine actual images, particularly for lead-generating websites when you're selling professional services. And, if you think about where we came from 5 years ago, what was the greatest thing about stock photos is they made small companies look like big companies.
Yeah.
And so we all got compelled to using all these stock photo images. Now I think the pendulum is swinging the other way.
Yeah, I think a lot of big companies want to feel like they're small companies.
Yeah, that's true. A little more personalization.
I don't have much more to say about that. It's just kind of the way it is.
So let me ask you this. Now, I've done this quite a bit in the past doing conversion optimization where I actually record the screen, the users, what they're doing, reading, where they're going.
Cursor, finger.
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll find a lot of the time that people, when they're reading, they'll use their mouse to go through the sentences,
Yeah. So there's Usertesting.com, as I mentioned. That's a huge tool that I use to do usability testing. And it's people that are being recruited to run usability studies. And so their microphone has been turned on by Usertesting.com, and they're provided with instructions. And it's maybe buy this thing, find the black thing and buy that black thing, whatever it is. Or it's a black large thing. I don't know. And then they go through and they do it, but they're requested also to vocalize their internal monologue as they're going through and doing it. So that allows you to say, well, I'm not finding this here. And that unveils usability issues, but can also unveil customer objections. And so that's tremendously valuable. The screen recordings bit you can automate using Hotjar VWO, and they basically, it's muted and it's literally a person in their house and you can track their cursor. And that's a common practice. So the problem is that you end up getting a couple hundred of these videos and you have to go through them and watch them.
Yeah.
That is the most boring thing in the world, and I do this for a living. Like, it shouldn't be boring, man, but I'm just there like. So when you're doing that, I spin it up as like a big company initiative, and then I distribute the load among as many people as possible, because if 10 people can do 10 recordings a piece, then it's way less boring.
Right.
That also allows you to keep your brain sharp, because it just kind of fogs up and softens as you're doing it. And then you're doing basically what, like, you have a checklist that you give to everybody so that there's consistency in the valuation, because people can zoom in on just subjective bits and be like, number 3 did this. And it's like, well, yeah, but that happened once in 100 recordings. Like, it might be a problem, but it was not common, right? So yeah, that's definitely a research technique that I use, but it's a little bit, it looks easy because it's a matter of mashing one button on Hotjar, but actually generating like serious design insight out of it and making sure you're not going down the wrong path is like counterintuitively very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have something?
Well, it is almost time for Believe It or Leave It.
Well, we got like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
So let's get the staple. What was the tattoo you were calling?
Tattoo, right. What's the Search Talk Live tattoo that you want our listeners to remember? What's the single most impactful advice you can give someone who's listening to the show?
It's not about case studies. It's about research.
Okay. That was
Don't
quick
look
and
it
easy.
up what other people are doing. Well, I don't want a tattoo to be a paragraph.
Right.
But the reason behind the tattoo would be it's not about looking at what other people are doing and saying, oh, that's what's working now. Because there's this broad incentive to think about what works, right? That was what a lot of this conversation was. And some of it is just best practices, stuff that you should be doing. But a lot of it is like, I had a interview recently where somebody was like, really, what color should the call to action button be? And I just deadpanned blue.
There's that button test.
And they were like, we have it. It's blue. We solved call to action button colors. And I'm like, thank God. Can we do something like interesting now?
So let me clarify this, because what you just said, I might have I'm not sure about. So if let's take a banking website, for example.
Sure.
You go around and you're doing competitive analysis, and you're looking at other websites, and you know that these companies have A/B tests and they're doing something right because they're huge, right?
All of them do, yeah.
Right. So wouldn't you recommend getting some cues from that, or you're saying not to?
I mean, there's one thing to do competitive analysis. That's like a form of research, right?
Sure.
You're going within a specific target market. So if I'm an e-commerce store that does daily carry stuff, like I said before, I would go and look at e-commerce stores doing daily carry stuff. But
Correct.
I would also cast a suspicious eye on it, because it might be that a lot of people are doing the wrong thing because they're all following each other, right?
Good point. That is a good point.
And I would trust my own data more than what they're doing.
Right.
Right. You have to know how to prioritize the information that you're getting in. Because I trust what my customers are saying, but I also trust more what my customers are doing in practice, which might differ, right? It could be like, oh, I signed up in 5 minutes, and then I have like a screen recording and 2 heat maps that are like, you totally are lying to me. And you don't know because you're a customer. You have other things going on in your life. So you just believe a different thing, and your brain led you to think that, So, but yeah, I think there's value in all of those things, but I would never use it to like settle a debate internally and be like, well, our competitor is doing this. Well, okay, great. Why?
And I would have to say an important thing too is to keep your personal opinion out of it, right? Like, go off of more instinct and knowledge than saying, oh, well, I think this would look better, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's also, this forces kind of an organizational mindset shift, right? You're not just going by what the CEO says. You're not just going by what looks the best, although that could be, right? You're not just going by what the designer thinks their ego really wants, but you're going by what your customers are telling you, because you're a business that's serving the customer, and that involves really ditching your ego every single day, and that is scary and difficult process for a lot of people.
Yeah, for myself, I work with a lot of other companies, and for myself, mandate, I never let myself use the words I like.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I'm going to do so many products that I'm not the target customer. So what I like is not relevant to the discussion. Now, if I can defend a past A/B test experience and apply it to the situation, then I will. But just preventing yourself from using the words I like pushes you to a higher level of critical thought.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, it's time for Believe It or Leave It.
It's time for Believe It or Leave It. Nick, are you ready?
I don't know if I can be ready, but let it on.
Okay, and I'm going to throw Robert a curveball because we're going to do these in reverse order. So here's your Believe It or Leave It. You're going to tell our audience whether they should believe this statement that we found on the internet or leave it. And number one is, all testing should always be segmented by desktop versus mobile because respective user behaviors in those environments are always different. Believe it or leave it?
Inclined to believe it.
Inclined to believe it. Seeing a big disparity between desktop and mobile user patterns.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on that?
Yes, mostly because I've looked at probably 100 different very large businesses' analytics, and I see that happening. Mm-hmm. I see that happening on their heat maps and their analytics all the time. Conversion rates definitely bear that out.
Okay. Number two, believe it or leave it. Button copy should never be more than 3 words.
Leave it.
Leave it.
Really? Yes, please elaborate.
I mean, maybe on mobile you want different button copy or something like that, but I've seen longer phrases. I mean, up to 5 or 6.
Wow.
But 3, not the sentence thing. Don't do the sentence thing. Don't rejoin it with a semicolon or an end dash. But 3 seems a bit much.
No emojis? I'm kidding.
I definitely believe in short button copy, but not that short.
But if you've got a conjunction in your button copy, it's too long.
Probably.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to pause to read it and
take a breath.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Last one, Nick. Believe it or leave it. In the near future, use of genuine, actual photos over stock photos will always nearly lift conversion rates.
We already covered this. Probably believe it.
That's why I've reversed the order.
All right. I see.
But you believe it.
I believe it, yeah.
I would have to agree in my experience.
People know what a stock photo is by this point. They've got like a sense for it. And that's a sign you shouldn't be doing it.
Unless you're so good looking, it looks like it's
right. Everybody in your company looks like they just came off.
Some people are like that. I got this one where the CEO was like this incredibly conventionally attractive, dashing fellow, and they put him on the homepage, and no one believed it.
Yeah, you go to some companies, it looks like everybody just came off The Bachelor, you know?
Yeah. He felt like offended. It was funny. Like, it's not you.
I got this picture. It reminds me, I got this picture on my wall at home, and I never took out the insert.
Oh, the picture that came with it for the frame. Oh, yeah.
Everyone's like, who's that? Oh. Anyway.
You're such a good-looking family, Robert.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, lots of great information. It will be tweeted out and sent across all social media outlets in the next 5 minutes.
Lovely.
Or actually 10 minutes. I want to thank you for having you on and giving us your insights into conversion optimization.
Thank you so much for having me. And if you're curious more about my work, you can go to draft.nu, and that is my business's site. You'll take a look there.
And they can catch you on Twitter at Nick
I'm
D?
Nick D on Twitter, yeah.
That's pretty easy. And then they can follow your site from there, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks again, man.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, I want to thank you again for listening to the show. Your support is always appreciated. Share it out to your friends in the industry. Like I said, there's always something to talk about during the show or get out of the show. Did you want to add something?
Well, a special call out for people who run B2B websites, because next week we're going to talk specifically about B2B content marketing.
Yeah. And Michelle Stinson Ross, thank you for live tweeting the show. Go to searchtalklive.com, sign up for the newsletter. You can get your information on up-and-coming shows. I'll be updating that here in the next day or so. We'll see. What's our next show? It's new. We had a cancellation and we didn't have anybody.
We might
now
be
we
reshuffling the schedule.
Yeah. So I'll let you know on that. I'll put that up today. Go to Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. Sign up, follow us there, because you'll get an email as soon as the show goes live. You'll get notification that the show's live. And let's see. Also, get your questions in on Twitter using hashtag SearchTalkLive, regardless if the show's on or not, because we'll try and answer those questions during the show in the next episode. Want to thank everybody for listening again, and we'll see you next week. You want to add anything?
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Oh, yeah.
Great show.
Go check out Smilelytics.
Smilelytics, SMYLELYTICS, Smilelytics.com.
Great show. Thanks a lot, guys, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye.
Find the true value of your home when you log on. HomeValue.com.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. Check out robertpalmercompanies.com for more information.